At 05:15 local time, 5 solid rocket boosters lit up a frozen field in Zaporizhia Oblast, and each sent a 6-ton cruise missile screaming into the sky. They are aimed at Kapustin Yar, Russia's main launch pad for launching missiles, at the same time that the facility prepares Aresnik ballistic missiles that have been pounding Ukrainian cities for the past weeks. The 5 weapons you are looking at here are climbing quickly, headed east towards the most heavily defended airspace in the world, FP-5 Flamingos. They would only have to travel 650 kilometers, but the Ukrainians weren't sending the missiles where the Russians expected. The boosters were fired for a duration of 6 seconds. White-hot exhaust that each thermal sensor within 50 kilometers could see. Then they parted company, rolling off down under. Imagine a paper airplane with a bottle rocket attached. Once the rocket stops burning, the plane must fly its own flight. The missiles were not powered for 1.4 seconds, 5 times 6 tons of fiberglass, fuel, and explosive, riding the momentum in January air. Then the AI-25 turbofans caught. The Flamingos started making their descent to their cruising altitude of 50 meters. Still not there, still at 400 meters, and now slowing down as it moves from ballistic climb to low-level cruise. This is the most critical part of a cruise missile's journey. Too slow to outrun anything, and too high to hide from anything. Neon painting of all radars in view. The most heavily defended section of the airspace on Earth, the Russia-Ukraine contact line, was directly below them. Over 100 kilometers of redundant radar coverage, echeloned SAM batteries, crews that have been chasing Ukrainian drones and missiles for 4 consecutive years. However, Ukraine's planners did not dispatch 5 Flamingos on parallel tracks as shooting gallery. The front of the formation was 40 kilometers wide, with no more than 1 or 2 Buk batteries engagement radar able to track a group of missiles at any one time, yet with the entire wave hitting the contact line in the same 90-second window. Each SAM team on the crossing axis was asked to select a target and commit, and choosing one meant passing over 4. One of the Flamingos was located in the 9S-36 engagement radar of the Russian Buk-M3 battery, which was part of an infantry division along the front. Target, medium altitude, boost to cruise transition. The exact shot the crew practiced at Ashluk 100 times. They had about 30 seconds of time until the missile had landed. They fired. The interceptor started to climb up on the converging path, accelerating toward the spot in space where that math said the Flamingo would be in 4 seconds. But the Flamingo was sinking faster than was the prediction. It was 1/10 of a second closer to the ground each second, and each meter it fell, it was adding more to the Buk's radar image. Ground returns, splashing the fire control solution as if it were raining on a windshield. At 400 meters, the tracking was clean, but at 150 was noise. The engagement radar was struggling to maintain a target, which was breaking up into the ground below it at 80. Suppose a particular car is being followed on a highway from a helicopter. Easy when there is no traffic, but as soon as that car becomes a part of bumper-to-bumper traffic, it vanishes. This is what the Buk's radar image was doing. The Flamingo was blending in with the soil. The interceptor made it through the formation's altitude without taking a shot. At 50 meters, the Flamingos evened out and accelerated to 900 kilometers per hour. But the best of it was yet to come. Russian air defense layers its defenses, overlying each other to cover blind spots, medium range on top and short range below. Buk first shot attempt at altitude. What remains is then passed to the goalkeeper and is known to NATO as the Tor-M2 or the M2 gauntlet. As the Buk is working the medium altitude problem, the Tor is located within the Buk's coverage bubble and waits to see what walks through. Imagine it as an extra defender standing between the attacker and the goal. Its radar is geared specifically for the exact situation the Buk just failed at. Fast targets and low clutter close to the ground. Engagement floor 10 meters. Reaction time, detection to launch, 5 to 8 seconds. It is the fastest in response surface-to-air missile in the Russian arsenal. The tour crew was able to see the Flamingos on radar at the southern edge of their 16-kilometer envelope, slow and fast. As Ukraine had hoped, they fired at the nearest one. The Tor-M2 may be able to acquire one target, fire and steer the intercepting vehicle to the calculated intercept point, evaluate, and then slew to the next target, and repeat the cycle. That's more than enough against one cruise missile. With 5 of them crossing their envelope at 900 kilometers per hour, that's a hard set of math. Each engagement lasts for 8 to 12 seconds. The tour's window is 16 kilometers and takes about 20 seconds for the 5 Flamingos to pass through. The crew got their shot at 1. The remaining 4 were through the envelope before the system cycled. This interceptor's proximity fuse set off a fragmentation ring several hundred meters ahead of the flight path of the targeted Flamingo. However, it was of no importance. The Flamingo is not made from aluminum, but fiberglass composite. Some fragments penetrated it without damaging any critical organs. The engagement window was now closed and the Flamingos flew on. All the Russian gunners behind the first line anticipated that they would continue on an eastern course into Russian homeland, where the entire military district's air defense structure faced the westward threatening line. However, the Flamingos took to the south. The formation turned to Rostov Oblast, then turned east away from Kapustin Yar, away from the target, in the opposite direction till all the cruise missile strikes that Ukraine had launched in almost 4 years of fighting. You can see why if you bring up the map. The route from Zaporizhia to Kapustin Yar is straight through the thickest air defense corridor in Russia. S-400 batteries that blanket Volgograd with 400 kilometers engagement radars and MiG-31s on patrol over the Astrakhan corridor. There are Zaslon radars looking for just this sort of subsonic cruise missile, the Flamingo. Pole 21, GPS jamming on cell towers covering all inhabited areas in the navigation denial. It all calibrated, rehearsed, and all facing due west and towards the threat. There is one way that Ukraine could have gone. Send 5 Flamingos, except that 3/4 of them get swatted down. That's the math. Perhaps 1 or 2 pass through, 1 is sufficient. But this is a coin toss play versus the target that is smarter. Those planners studied that wall and had a brilliant idea in Ukraine. It's crazy to start with to fly 1,800 kilometers to land 650 kilometers from the target. Until all highway connections between New York and Philadelphia are like the Fury Road from Mad Max, Miami looks like a better choice. However, the length of this path posed an issue that Ukraine could not design out. These engines are for training aircraft. They were built decades ago in Zaporizhia for the use of student pilots flying on Aero L-39 Albatross jet trainers on supervised solos, 2-hour flights, and with full ground crews between each sortie for motor seek. The startup company Firepoint from Ukraine acquired thousands of them from a junkyard and creates the Flamingo with them. Old Soviet metal beefed up, bolted onto cruise missiles and directed to do things no L-39 instructor ever thought those engines could do. These engines may only have 10 hours life remaining each. Tonight, they only need less than 2. However, those 2 hours will be the most challenging flights ever for these turbo fans. It takes 43 minutes to fly direct. The southern arc is closing in on 2 hours, and every minute is critical for the refurbished engines to continue running at 50 meters in sub-zero air. Commercial jets are equipped with anti-icing systems, heated intakes with air going to critical surfaces. Redundant backups were tested 10,000 times under control conditions. The AI-25 doesn't have that. These engines are sucking in air at enormous volume in freezing conditions on the ground at an altitude of 50 meters, and it is dense air with moisture laden. That moisture turns to ice crystals on the intake surfaces and on the compressor blades, which interfere with the airflow until the compressor stalls. A stall at 50 meters would make a cruise missile a 6-ton lawn dart. Damage impact in less than 4 seconds. Student pilots' former reliable engines, which were used for supervised solos, were now the only aspect that they could not control on 5 weapons, which had taken months of careful planning. The devious way that evaded all Russian SAMs had doubled the time frame in which the Flamingo's own machinery could bring them down. So if the freezing temperatures are a speed bump, then this is a sinkhole that they have to navigate around. Then Kikia, one of the emptiest landscapes in Europe, Buddhist steps going in all directions, little population, virtually no infrastructure, and satellite imagery that's one shade of brown for 300 kilometers in all directions. Crossed by the Flamingos in almost complete silence in the field of the electromagnetic. The anti-jam antenna arrays also managed to acquire clean GPS fixes and correct any drift in navigation that had accumulated during the crossing of the front line for the first time since launch. But there were no cell towers and no Pole 21 GPS jamming. This emptiness proved to be an ally this time, but emptiness cuts both ways. The backup terrain contour matching or TERTCOM navigation, which uses a radar altimeter to detect the land under the aircraft and compare it with a map of terrain, requires points to reference the terrain to. Ridges, river bends, elevation changes. Kikia is lacking in all of that. Satellite failure, GPS fault, maybe something else. The missiles would not be able to tell where they were. Their aim was to fly as straight as possible until they dropped out of fuel and crashed in fields no one would look for months. 5 threads of navigation strewn across a terrain with no second chances. Fortunately, the Flamingos avoided Kilikia and headed north to the Caspian coast to Kapustin Yar and straight into the one thing the long way couldn't miss. The west coast of the Caps is not devoid of people. The Russian Caspian flotilla cruises these waters out of Makala and Astrakhan. On this morning, it was a Buk-M3 class corvette doing just that. At 950 tons, they are small for a warship, but these corvettes have positive Me air search radars. But that radar has a cheat code over open water that composite construction can't outpace. On land, a low-flying missile's radar return is confused with the terrain, buildings, power lines, etc. that the Flamingos can hide inside of. The scene is clear on the water. Anything that flies in the air appears projected on a white backdrop like a flashlight in a dark room. The ship's CIC showed contacts, low, high subsonic heading north. The Buk-M was armed with an AK-630 rotary cannon and IGL shoulder launched missiles for self-defense. However, the Flamingos were too distant and too quick to fight. But by the time a gunner trained the AK-630 on the bearing, they would have gone. The captain instead switched on the radio. Reports of contact, bearing, speed, altitude, and heading to Caspian Flotilla headquarters in Astrakhan. 1,800 kilometers of road planning. Every radar avoided. All the SAM sidestep have been compromised by an unmarked ship on a routine patrol who had his eyes on the right screen at the wrong moment. Flotilla HQ passed the report on to the Regional Air Defense Command. There, the intercept chain was stymied and the Flamingos were saved, at least for now. None of the contacts of the cruise missiles in the south fitted a threat template in the system. In the South Military District, all the scrambles and standing orders were directed to the west. No one had planned for the fast movers coming north from the Caspian. The duty officer needed verification. Commercial-friendly aircraft returning to base. Cruise missile was screaming at the contact perimeters. However, from this bearing, normal additional minutes for classification. Not much, but some. On Oktober, Kapustin Yar's 929th State Flight Test Center. The scramble order was given to a crew of MiG-31 Foxhound. The fastest combat aircraft in Earth orbit is the MiG-31 with a maximum speed of Mach 2.35. It features the most powerful radar Zaslan AM in Russian service. Takes aim at 10 targets and shoots 4 at once. This aircraft designed from the fuselage up to intercept cruise missiles. If you designed a machine solely to identify and shoot down a Flamingo, you'd come up with something that would closely resemble the MiG-31. And one crew is running down the tarmac to theirs now. But all of this doesn't happen in a flash. The MiG-31's D30F6 turbofans require 90 seconds to go from cold start to stable idle. 90 seconds at 15 kilometers a minute while Flamingos are covering at 15 kilometers per minute. Main engine spooling. Afterburner came on and 25,000 kilograms of thrust held both crew to their seats. Gear up. 90 kilometers. Up a cold, January sky over Astrakhan. Nose pointed south to the dark horizon. 80 kilometers. The Zaslan had to be calibrated for the warm-up before it could scan. The first couple of sweeps return garbage returns unless the phased array is stabilized. 70. Now the rear cockpit WISO switched on the radar. Bearing from ship's report was passed for the ground. Data older than minutes, but this was the crux of the issue. The Flamingos had spread out from the contact line all along the southern route. By this time they had come in from the south but from slightly different directions. Spread 30 kilometers up front were converging on the target complex. The Zaslan's beam is sweeping a 140-degree cone, yet each time it sweeps, it snags what's in its path at that moment. A missile, 15 kilometers away to the left of the beam center, is not there until the antenna returns to that angle of sweep. 5 missiles, 30 kilometers apart. Basically, the radar was looking at 5 individual haystacks, one at a time. The pilot set a southerly course and the Zaslan started sweeping. Clutter Ground returns a temperature inversion over the steppe in January in an erratic manner, bending radar energy in unpredictable ways. Ghosts appear and shadow zones in the very altitude band in which the Flamingos were flying. The Wizzo reduced the elevation scan. The Zaslon can be published to have a detection range of 65 kilometers against low-altitude cruise missile. This number is from Ashaluk. Effective range is reduced under test conditions with a cooperative target on a known heading against unannounced contacts from the wrong direction over dark steppe. How far is dependent on all that the textbook doesn't teach. 60 kilometers to Kapinar. Then the MiG was lucky. Return faint with 175 range uncertain. The Wizzo tried to promote it from a search hit to a track. Several successive returns at constant bearing and range were required to develop a firing solution. Makes 2 sweeps and nothing. The only significant radar returns off a 12-meter fiberglass cruise missile will be from the metal engine NL and control surfaces. In some ways, the Zaslon was hunting for motorcycles, 45 kilometers down with nose. The lower the altitude is, the less the clutter, but the smaller the radar horizon. A problem was exchanged for a different problem. The Wizzo cycled modes track while scanned single target track wide search. In accordance with the ship report, the Panzer batteries at Kapustin Yar had turned south. All were viewing a 30-kilometer across arc. Nobody had a lock. 35 kilometers. Solide retour maintenant. 3 sweeps, constant bearing with decreasing range. The Wizzo commanded lock on. Zaslon transitioned from search to single target track. A Russian weapon system had a Flamingo in the firing solution in a first since launch. 1 in every 5 Flamingos. The pilot chose the R-37M Mach 6, the longest range air-to-air missile in Russian service. This is about 15 seconds to intercept at this distance. It took the Flamingos approximately 100 seconds to arrive at the target. That should have been more than a sufficient amount of math to swat all 5. If he could locate all 5, the crew shot it. The R-37 was thrown off the rail and the booster accelerated it to 6 times the speed of sound in less than 3 seconds. Turning towards the computed intercept point, the point in space at which the R-37 trajectory and its target's trajectory would intersect. The intercept points are predictions. They assume the target is maintaining its speed and direction. The target Flamingo was in its terminal climb, a final course correction 2 degrees, perhaps 3, as the navigation system's last refinement of the system brought it in toward the target site coordinates, insignificant for the warhead's accuracy, but sufficient to move the intercept point hundreds of meters at this closure rate. The R-37 arrived at the calculated coordinates. Now 400 meters away, the Flamingo was off and running, while 4 more missiles were seconds away. The MiG had had no chance to engage them. At 0717 local time, the first Flamingo was thrown into its final dive. It was the warhead, and 1,150 kilograms penetrating charge, the same class as a Blue 109 bunker buster that blasted through the roof of a hangar-type building that was used for Archnik pre-launch preparation. It missed and failed to detonate on contact. It was billed to continue right through the roof, right through the floor, through the infrastructure below, and then it detonated. The blast wave expanded outwards from the interior, causing walls to be blown off their foundations and the ceiling to collapse inwards, resulting in all elements of the building becoming projectiles. In the next few seconds, 4 more impacts were recorded. The hangars, where Russian crews had spent weeks preparing Oreshnik intermediate range ballistic missiles for launch, were tore open from below. Infrastructure for assembling, logistics warehouses, equipment serviced with weapons that cost less than an apartment in Moscow. Junkyard engines built by a startup run by architects and game designers.